Welcome to an evening celebrating 50 years since Mivtza Chinuch. Shabbos Mevarchim, ER, 50 years ago, the Rebbe launched Mivtza Chinuch. And the Rebbe spoke and he said some powerful words. Medaf machen atumul und ashturim in dem Inyan for Chinuch habonim v'habonis. Tonight, we will hear how Chinuch is not just for Mechanchim and Mechanchos. It is for every single person. It is for people in business. It is for people who are children themselves. And it is also for people who are Ktanim b'Yediyah, as the Rebbe describes in that Sikha. And it is their job, and it is our job to inspire and uplift every single person who we interact with in an oifen of Chinuch. Over this evening, you will hear and enjoy speeches by Rabbonim, by Shluchim, by Choshev and Mechanchim, and by businessmen. And we will hear how they themselves bring Chinuch and this inyan of Mivtza Chinuch and this idea of Mivtza Chinuch into their own personal life. We hope you will enjoy this evening. Tonight is also the second yard site of Rabbi Moshe Kotlarsky. Rabbi Moshe Yehuda ben Rav Chassid Rav Tamim Rabbi Tzvi Yosef Olav Hashem. And tonight's event is dedicated in commemoration of his yahrzeit. He was very passionate about Chinuch. He was very passionate. He was shoav kol yom of ligrim nachas roach to the Rebbe. He was the vice chairman of Merkez Linyani Chinuch. And it's very appropriate that we're doing this tonight in memory of Rabbi Kotlarsky. The event tonight is done in collaboration with the Menachem Education Foundation and the Merkez Chinuch office. And if you're on Chabad.org/Chinuch50, you can see there is a beautiful program guide. You can download it and enjoy to follow along the program and follow along some of the sichos inside. And now to the program. One of the moistus that the Rebbe established himself, one of the moistus Chinuch, is Olei Torah. Olei Torah has children in preschool, elementary, Mesivta, Zal, thousands of children, and it is a great honor and a schus for us to have with us the Rosh Mossad and visionary leader, Rabbi Mendel Blau, who is also an esteemed member of the Vada Chinuch of the Merkez Chinuch office, who is here to start tonight's program.
Tavshin Lamed Vav, 1976, was a year that was supercharged in many ways. Some of us that are old enough to remember, or some of you, I should say, that are old enough to remember, may remember Antebi that happened towards the end of the year. For a Lubavitcher, Antebi comes with another set of memories of the Rebbe's involvement with declaring it the Nes and the Shevach Vayda to the Eibishter. But let's rewind a little bit earlier in the year of 1976, Tavshin Lamed Vav. It was Shabbos Mevarchim Chodesh Iyar where the Rebbe announced on Mivtza Chinuch, and he declared that this year is going to be a year of Chinuch. That Farbrengen was followed up on Rosh Chodesh Iyar, Thursday night, where the Rebbe introduced the first set of 6 psukim of what later would become a set of 12 psukim. 18 days later, on Lag BaOmer of Tavshin Lamed Vav, the Rebbe introduced a second set of 6 psukim, and today we are 50 years commemorating that day when it was declared a year of Chinuch and the 12 psukim. Now, the Rebbe, we know, also introduced to Klal Yisrael the 10 Mivtzayim. When it comes to the 10 Mivtzayim, it's very easy to explain what is the 10 Mivtzayim. They have a definition, they have a translation, they have a very clear direction, they have a very clear mandate. Let's start with Tavshin Chav Zayin, when the Rebbe introduced Mivtza Tefillin before the 6-day war. It's very easy to understand. What is Mivtza Tefillin? Go to another Yid and inspire him and offer him to put on tefillin, to don tefillin for the first time, or to recommit himself to putting tefillin, to laying tefillin. And the same thing is true about the other 10 of the Mivtzayim. But when we look at Mivtza Chinuch, what is the word, what is this Mivtza? What does it mean? We're declaring it a year of Chinuch. What does Chinuch mean? For that matter, what's even the correct translation of Chinuch? So the truth is, in the word of Chinuch, oftentimes we have what we call faculty of schools, we call them mechanchim or mechanches. In English, we would loosely translate that to educators. But I believe we can introduce tonight that a more accurate and precise translation of chinuch actually can be found in the Torah in a Rashi. And when we understand what the real translation of the word, it doesn't limit what chinuch is. It actually broadens and expands its scope and really allows us to understand what was the Rebbe envisioning when he introduced Mivtza Chinuch or declared it a year of Chinuch. Rashi, in Bereishis, on the Pasuk, when it says that Avram heard that Lot was in trouble and he was captured, it says, Vayishma Avram ki nishba achiv, Vayorek es chanichav yelidei beisai shmeina asur shleish me'ez vayir defadan. He gathered his chanichav. So chanichav, we would say he gathered his mechunachim. He gathered those that he educated. But that's an interesting term. Chanichav yelidei beisai. Now I want to pause before I go into the Rashi, and I'll say like this. Commonly, when we see a child with great manners, we say, oh, he was raised well. He must have wonderful parents. When we see a child who is well educated, who is articulate, who is knowledgeable, he says he got a great education. So we see them almost as two different roles. There's the Yelidei Beisai, there's raising a child, and then there's education. But the truth is, let's go into that Rashi, where Rashi wants to define what is this novel word of chanichav. Oftentimes, for most of us, if you would, jog your memory and try to think, what comes up for you when you say chinuch? Might think, if I'm looking for something broader, you would think of Chanukas HaMizbeach, Chanukas HaBayis. So you would maybe think that what is chinuch? Inauguration. But actually what's interesting is that Chanukas HaMizbeach and Chanukas HaMishkan and Chanukas HaBayis and Chanukas HaMenorah actually get its word from the definition of Chanichav in the context of Avram training and breaking in and really setting the direction of these children that he raised. So let's see this in Rashi. Rashi says, what is Chanichav? Rashi says, Ze Eliezer. Shechonchoi lemitzvah. Shechinchoi lemitzvah. He educated, but let's actually use the word, he trained him. And Rashi says, V'uloshen hascholas knisas ha'adam. It actually is used in the context of the beginning of a person entering oilikli umnus shehu asid lamidba, either towards a profession that he is going to be doing. And Rashi brings in this context, that's Chanuch Lenar, that's Chanukas HaMizbeach, that's Chanukas HaBayis. And then Rashi gives us some Yiddish words depending on the version. Rashi says it's either like induction or zum ersten Mal bräuchen. Rashi uses an old French word. So let's try to, in very short, try to understand what chinuch is. Chinuch is really to break a child in. Break a child is maybe to build a child, to break him in, to allow him to discover and actually inaugurate himself towards what he's going to do. What's the umnus? It's the umnus of Yiddishkeit. Chinuch at the home and chinuch in yeshiva is all one thing, which is why the Rebbe spoke so much about the cohesion that's necessary for chinuch to happen. Because chinuch is one big training ground. It's a training ground to allow a child to develop and allow ourselves to break ourselves into Yiddish life. The Rebbe actually used in one of the Fabringens the Lashon, to bring ourselves, to train ourselves, to rededicate ourselves, to reintroduce ourselves. So this induction, and we can talk about it, and you're going to hear from the speakers tonight so much about it and from different angles. But let's turn right now to hear it from the Rebbe's words when the Rebbe declared Mivtza Chinuch and introduced the 12 psukim following.
Dort hat so, am soll mich schattiv sein in dem Mivzoim und bimiuchad in dem Mivtza Chinuch, echet Eilelim wie Jenkim, und hat demut wir sein der Lahash Besei wo Misnakim betachlis Ashleimus. Wir können Masbir sein, jeder Kind, a viele Akotnische Biktanim, a Jinien von Teresche Biksav, a Jinien von Teresche Balpeh, bis als Aloch in Shulchan Aruch. Und Nietzsche behade Schusse Pilchen mit sich Halzer bei Jinien von Chassidus, a Jinien von Tanje.
Campaign was carried out by Tzach, by Tzir Gunas Chabad. And I remember sitting in the office of Tzach, and Shluchim would be calling, what do we do now? Like, the Rebbe just announced something. Rabbi David Raskin, the head of Tzir Gunas Chabad, he used to call me the expert in PR, because the first brochure for the Yud Beis Psukim I created, it wasn't a big deal, it was be wise, memorize, win a prize. And then the Rebbe said that the Yud Beis Psukim should be made into a booklet with pictures.
Als wir auch gebeten haben, soll ausdrücken die alle 12 Maimorim, die der Mond früher echt in einem Format kies, in einem kleinen Format, man soll das können voneinander zählen, Kinder oder Erwachsene, man soll das haben unter der Hand, gedehen noch einmal der Monne sagt, und noch einmal überchasern, jeder jüdischer Kind soll wissen, wegen Jüdischkeit von Teru und Mitzvahs, und leben sein tagtäglichen Leben in dem Efen. Und wie gesagt, früher, das wird beschützen, dem jüdischen Volk von der Scholachs, von der Welt. Die alle Maimore Chazal, Lachas kamen die Psuke, mehr die Maimorim von Tanje, hat es a Scheiches Mijuchedes, zu Lahash Bisei, wo Misnake, Mitzad Ruf, was Maslayu Chose. Sie darf aber herabkommen in Navir Hoeba. Sie kommt a Reis in Dibur, wird das Maslayu Chose.
Now that we've watched the Rebbe launch Mivtza Chinuch and the 12 Psukim, and we understand this better, we understand that the message is not only teachers are mechanchim, every single one of us is a mechanech. I would encourage everyone to learn these sichos well inside. They're there in the program guide. This is the way to really own it and to live with it. Now the next speaker, there's no better person to speak about Mivtza Chinuch, is Rabbi Mendy Kotlarski. So much of Mivtza Chinuch is about helping people understand that they are mechanchim, that every person has the ability and responsibility to teach, inspire, and influence others. And we see this reflected in so many of the programs that Rabbi Kotlarski has launched and developed. My Shliach, the Shluchim's children, are inspired to be teaching children in their Chabad house Aleph base in their Hebrew schools. In the Sikitz program, we have children, they're educated to not only learn Torah themselves, but to inspire their parents. With Sitin, they're not just putting on tefillin, they're going to other high school teens and putting on tefillin. With the CYP ambassadors, they're not just lighting menorah, they're going around and getting other young professionals to light menorah with them. And this is Rabbi Kotlarski's method, empowering others to become mechanchim themselves. And now, as the general chairman of the Merkaz Chinuch office, he is going to bring this to an even greater scale. Please welcome Rabbi Mendy Kotlarski.
Thank you for the warm introduction. Tonight is obviously a very, very personal and meaningful night to me. And when the opportunity came to be able to have this global Farbrengen with Chassidim, with Shluchim, with Anash, with Yidden around the world, dedicated, like you just heard, Lilu Nishmas of Imoidir, Rav Chassid, Rav Moshe Yehuda ben Rav Chassid, Rav Tzvi Yosef, Olav Shalom, thought to myself how appropriate to spend time on his yard site, inspiring each other to take something so dear, so powerful, so transformative, the gift that the Rebbe gave to the world, this whole new approach that we're going to hear about tonight, that we're going to bring about tonight, this idea of Mivtza Chinuch, empowering each and every person, each and every individual to make a difference continuously. To be able to dedicate this Li'ul Nishmas, my father, who over the years, I Baruch Hashem had the schus, and anybody who knew him knows that he was somebody who didn't take for granted and was extremely grateful for the schus to be able to fulfill the mission and the minuyim that the Rebbe gave him to establish, to support, to grow the network of shluchim, to go around to make kinusim and to inspire people, to meet communities and anash, and take the isolated individuals and bring them together to create communities. Often, either at a farbrengen or in conversation, I remember my father reflecting on a very interesting point. He said, you look around the world today, and Baruch Hashem, the Rebbe is celebrated as the undeniable leader, the Nasi Adar, Siches, Maimarim, Igros Kodesh, an army of Shluchim. And the list goes on of the Rebbe's great accomplishments. But if you look back at how the Rebbe changed the world, how the Rebbe created this reality, you'll notice that it started with the Rebbe sending one shliach to one place, another shliach to another place, and empowering them to go out and make a difference. One sicha at a time, one Igros Kodesh at a time. Now we look back and there's thousands of letters, tens of thousands of letters, thousands of sichas, thousands of maimarim, thousands of shluchim bli ayin hara. But it's all one by one. Like we see by dollars, every interaction, a person would come by, and this is how we make Shnas HaChinuch, the Mivtza Chinuch in Shnas HaChinuch, our reality. You don't have to change the world. You have to look for one more person. It could be a family member, it could be a neighbor on your block, it could be somebody in your business, it could be somebody in your community, it could be somebody you sit next to in shul. Think about one more thing that you can do, Al Tikr Vayikr El Vayakre, to inspire somebody to take the message and to go forward and to share that with somebody else. That's the incredible ingenuity of Mivtza Chinuch, to take every child, to take a child, Beruchnius, Begashmius, whatever type of person we are, at any level we are, to empower them and to inspire them to go out and to make a difference, one by one by one. Baruch Hashem had the schus. It just came yesterday from the Kinus HaShluchim of the Caribbean islands. Tonight, Li'ayin Hara, by a shliach, by a Kinus of the Mid-Atlantic region. And this is the idea that you hear again and again from shluchim, from isolated countries, from isolated cities, people living in the middle of nowhere. But they meet someone, they meet a yid on the street, they meet a yid for a shir, they meet a yid who came up off of a cruise ship, gave him a menorah. One thing inspired him to light the menorah on the cruise ship, and years later, all of a sudden, this young boy is now a Frum Lubavitch boy sharing messages across the world, inspired, uplifted, taking the Rebbe's message. And this, my friends, is what tonight is all about. We say L'chaim to each other, we say L'chaim to ourselves, we say L'chaim to the Rebbe. Thank you for this gift of giving us purpose, of giving us meaning, of empowering us to represent you, to be make a dira b'tachtonim, to make this world a place where every single yid has a purpose and a mission, is empowered to share Torah, mitzvahs, and most importantly, the Rebbe's chassidus and the Rebbe's message to everybody that they come in contact with. And by doing this, we will surely make sure that that one mitzvah to tip the scale one more mitzvah that we can do that will break the walls of Gullus and reunite us with our Rebbe, that we can have a Shnas HaYovel of Mivtza Chinuch, which is the ultimate transformation with the ultimate coming of the redemption of Mashiach Tzidkenu. We'll break down these walls of Gullus and head to Yerushalayim Yer HaKodesh with our Rebbe, with all of our loved ones, and be able to look up and tell the Eibishter, we asinu es shluchuscha, we did what the Rebbe asked us to do, and now it's time for the Geula Amitis V'Ashlema, taken from Yad Mamish. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Many people separate chinuch from their life. They go to work, they build a beautiful business, and then they support their children's education. But Rabbi Eliyahu Kolodenko, since founding QuestServe in 1999, QuestTrade in 1999, he has led the company's growth to over $92 billion in assets. But he views education differently. In addition to supporting chinuch globally and locally, when he has shiurim in his own boardroom, and when the Chabad House, the local JRCC, needed a place to be, he welcomed them in to his own business and to his own company to run a shul there, knowing that this is Misham Yotzes Oida, from here, from a shul, from a Chabad House, is where the Ur and the real Chayis is going to be. And this is not just supporting chinuch, this is living chinuch. Welcome to the stage, Rabbi Eliyahu Kolodenko.
Good evening, everyone. What an honor it is to be with you tonight, especially celebrating special 50 years of Mivtza Chinuch, and of course, on the art side of our dear Moshe, Rav Moshe Kotlarski. I can tell you, I'm going to start with a story, a personal story of how it is that I got here. I actually do not like public speaking. However, a couple years ago, I was watching one of those gem videos, Motzei Shabbos, and there was a senior executive from IBM that went in and asked the Rebbe. There was a conference, and he asked the Rebbe whether he should be speaking at this conference. And he was going to go in front of a large crowd, a crowd of non-Jews, and he didn't really want to go. And he asked the Rebbe whether he should go. And the Rebbe says, you need to do it, because if people see someone who looks like you, who looks like a Yid, maybe there's a Yid in the crowd, or maybe there's somebody who was going to be watching and will tell somebody. And even the non-Jews will be influenced to do something good. And I'm watching this video, and I never used to do these public speaking engagements, but after watching this video, I felt that the Rebbe was speaking to me. And so ever since then, I took it upon myself that even though I don't like doing it, I still go out and I do it. And this is what we're talking about. We're talking about putting ourselves in a position that may be a little bit uncomfortable, might be a lot uncomfortable, but we have to go out there and we have to put ourselves beyond our limitations in order to do, first of all, what the Rebbe is expecting us to do, but of course, in the furtherance of the mitzvah chinuch, which is so important to ourselves and for everyone around. And when we talk about it, it starts with yourself. First, you have to go, it's very well known, you have to go and change yourself. And so, along with all the other esteemed rabbis that were advertised on the flyer, and I was introduced here as Rabbi Eliyahu Kolodenko. Well, how did it happen? I never went to yeshiva. I didn't spend a single day as a bacher in yeshiva. However, I can tell you that at the age of 50, I did receive smicha, and I had to work for it. I had to work hard for it. It wasn't easy. I broke my teeth and I broke my brain having to pass all those tests. All of those of you that have done it before, probably at a much younger age, have probably had a little easier time. But again, you have to push yourself beyond what you think is possible. The Rebbe believes in you, the Rebbe believes in us, and we can do it. So it's very uncomfortable for me to speak about myself, but because I took it on, because I know that others want to hear about things that I want, that they want to hear from me, they want to hear things that I have to say, I do it. And so I'll tell you, running an organization of around 2,000 people, and most of them, of course, are not Jewish. I end up in all kinds of different circles. I take the Mivtza Chinuch not only personally, as you just heard, but also I have to make sure that we're educating all of our employees. That's part of what we do. We educate all of our clients to become much better. We want them to be very successful, financially successful and secure. That's part of our mission. It's part of how we help them. And in order to do that, we also have to educate all the people that we have inside. So how do we do that? And I can tell you that anybody who's walked the halls over at Quastrade, we have these long hallways. So one of the things that we do, many people put up different kinds of quotes. And so there's quotes from all kinds of famous people. Well, the famous people that I decided to put quotes up are from the Rebbe, from our Rebbe, from previous Rebbes, from the Talmud. What better wisdom are you going to impart than the wisdom of our sages? And these are some of the things that we do. Not only that, everybody who on boards with us, every new employee, and even all the existing employees, there's a wonderful, wonderful book on the Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach. It's called The One Book, The One Universal Code. A very short book, 31 pages, very easy to read. What do? We make sure that every employee receives one of them. This is a way to teach ethics. And I'll tell you another story of what I did recently. Recently, I'm working on a project internally to teach our staff about the culture that we have at Quastrade. We changed a lot of staff over. And one of the things that I'm doing, is I'm putting together an artifact of, say, 31 basic or 32 basic ideas of what it is, how it is that we're going to impart the culture. And I can tell you that I'm personally involved, our family is personally involved in a fantastic new project. We managed over the past year or so to put together amazing Chabad organizations, Sichas in English, Lahak, and Kahas. We put them all together in order to pool the wealth of knowledge that we have from the Rebbeim and to put it into one database which AI will ingest. And I'm proud to say that very, very soon, this new tool is coming out where anybody can go onto this website and make a query and any question and pretty much get an answer from the Rebbe, because we've managed to put the entire library of all of the Rebbe's work into this AI engine, and it's learning all of the vast majority, or the entire Torah that the Rebbe put out. And this is a game changer. Not only does it change, it'll change the world, because anybody in the entire world can now go on through the internet and get a direct answer on any topic from the Rebbe. And so one of the things that I did in order to create this artifact is as a tester, I went onto the site and I asked it to create a document of, if I wanted to put together a document like this, what would the Rebbe suggest? And it came out with a beautiful foundation from which I built off of. And now we're going to impart this to the entire company. These are some of the ways that we use the Mivtza Chinuch to really impart what we want to do. To say it short, we're all responsible. We're all responsible for education, for educating ourselves, for educating our children, for educating the entire world. And just when you show up out there, just the way that you are and the way that you look, just that is enough to influence. You never know who's in the audience. You never know who's listening. You never know who's there. This is amazing. We're also making a revolution together with the Mivtza Chinuch office, a revolution in AI, and you're going to hear much more about that. But this is all education is at the foundation of everything that we should all be doing every single day. And we should continue to go on and really make the Rebbe proud.
Von ganz Misrad Achin, sein Batlocher Rabbe. Mit Brigis werden, wir bekommen mehr, wenn das die gleiche Sache hat. Die was haben mit Misrad Achin, soll Messi sein, mit Chinuch von sich allein. Der trifft einmal auf die junge Jahre mit etwas verfällt. Wir lernen Pesach Sheni, wir kommen jetzt von Pesach Sheni. Also wir tun etwas falsch. Darf man sagen, Mama nicht hören. Da muss jeder eine spezielle Mission mit speziellen Schliches. Dann ist es natürlich schwierig.
Learning never ends, learning never ends. This is the voiceover that we all heard in Camp Gan Yisrael across the globe. And as we just saw in the Rebbe's video, that learning truly never ends. And it's not just about educating ourselves, it's not just about educating others, it is about continuing our own education continuously. Rabbi Yaakov Shulman, the CEO of Sonova Care Insurance, he is passionate about continuing his own chinuch. He learns in the famous Koilol Dach. He sits and he steigt and he learns Chassidus. He learns Project Lekutei Sichos. He should be finishing Lekutei Sichos in a year from now, approximately. And he didn't stop there. He also, in addition to his business, he serves as an assistant rabbi at Chabad of Salova in Los Angeles. And he dedicates each week learning with his Janet Chavrusa. Rabbi Yaakov, perhaps after this session, you can tell us about your time management skills, because it sounds like you do a lot, you learn a lot, you do your business management a lot. So I'd love to sit and fabreng with you about that. L'chaim, please welcome Rabbi Yaakov Shulman.
Thank you, Rabbi Lowenthal. I appreciate the introduction. I came across a story some time ago from World War II. In 1943, German engineers captured an American Sherman tank in Tunisia and shipped it back to Germany for testing. They expected to confirm what they already believed, which was that the German Panzer tank was technologically superior in every way to the American armor. But instead, the Sherman tank created a crisis of confidence. The Panzer tank looked better on paper for sure. It had thicker armor, bigger guns, more advanced engineering. Technologically, it was completely superior. They were designed for perfection. But during testing, the German engineers discovered something very uncomfortable. The Sherman tank just kept working. It didn't overheat. The transmission didn't fail. It was easy to repair. It was easy to drive, and it was totally reliable. Meanwhile, Panzer tanks were breaking down all over the place, so much so that often they didn't even reach the battlefield. The Germans realized something very profound. In real war, reliability beats perfection. The Americans designed the Sherman tank around consistency, simplicity, ease of use, not perfection, just sustainability. I've come to think about my own learning kind of in the same way. Growing up in yeshiva, going through the entire Chabad system, sitting in yeshiva for many years, learning, trying to learn and figure out how to do that as an adult, as a married man, as a working person, kids and a life, etc. learning can become very challenging. I think I've adopted an approach of thinking about learning like a German engineer designing a Panzer tank. I need to have the perfect seder, the perfect chavrusa, the perfect understanding, the perfect consistency, the perfect time where I know that my head isn't elsewhere. Not when I'm under stress, not when I'm driving in the car, not when I'm roaming through an airport, but I know I cannot be perfect. And if I try, everything breaks down. I fall off the wagon, I stop learning, I get discouraged, and often I get completely disinterested in learning altogether. But tonight we're talking about chinuch. And part of chinuch is being a mechunach. And being a mechunach doesn't just mean learning Torah. It's not just going to the beis medrash, but it's actively educating ourselves and influencing those along the way. It's chinuch, it's not limud. Torah learning is not just about information, it's about transformation. It's an exercise, it's a practice. And the more we can think of it that way, at least for me, I think it enables me to think about this notion of transformation more easily, because I can create an approach that's not about perfection. It's just about being able to show up and be in the game. When we say Torah tziva lanu Moshe, Meirash Kehilas Yaakov, I've thought about this a lot, that Torah is an inheritance, but it's not just a collective inheritance. It's a personal inheritance, which means we all have to find ways to make this relevant and personal and doable. And with busy lives, whether you're a bacher, whether you're a married man, whether you're a mom, raising children, figuring out ways to do it, even if it means we are imperfect, I think is extremely doable. So I want to share with you the 5 learning buckets that I've figured out how to incorporate into my life. And maybe this is something useful for everybody here tonight. I think about Torah in a few different ways. I think about learning about what I must learn, what I try to learn, what I love to learn, what I work hard learning at, and what I can share. So the must learn is Chitas and Rambam. I don't always enjoy it. Sometimes I slog through it. Sometimes it's a 7-minute double speed with Raleigh Resnick. Sometimes all I remember is the Josh Gordon joke punchline, but I never miss. I struggle, but I won't skip. When I think about the things I try to learn, I am awful at learning Gemara. I've never been good at it. I've done it for 35 years. But to me, it's our connection to our Masorah. It's our connection to our Noisein HaTorah. And to be able to hang out with a Bayan Rav every day, that's not bad company. Then I think about what I love to learn. I love learning Chassidus, whether it's part of the Koilel Dach, or Project Likutei Sichos, or learning with somebody over the phone with JNet. These are opportunities for me to learn and share and be connected to the things that matter so much to our neshamas. And then there's working hard. I think, last week we had in B'chol Kaisai, the two amelim b'Torah, that we have to sweat a little bit. We got to try and work hard. So learning Torah has to have some element of sweat equity practice. And so I try and incorporate that, and thank God there's the Koilel Dach that's enabled me to dig into learning with my chavrusa and really make it personal and relevant. Special shout out to the Koilel Dach L'Nashim. They've added a phenomenal component of learning to my own experience by sharing classes on making learning very contemporary and very down to earth and relatable. And then finally, there's teaching. I think being a person in the business world, and yes, I'm part of a community which I'm very blessed to be part of Chabad of Sola in Los Angeles, and we have an incredible center of learning. Our group has been part of the, we call it the advanced Talmud class, but it's a closet Daf Yomi shir with Rabbi Avram Meir Zients. We've completed the entire Gemara on video. We're now working on the Yerushalmi. We've done Rambam. So many projects in our shul that have enabled us to participate as a group. And I really encourage everyone to be able to do that and be able to share. Think about something and be intentional and just make that part of your learning practice, where you meet somebody in shul, you're sitting in a farbrengen, you're at work. We all have something to share, and we can't shy away from that. And I think that's really the basic bottom line of being a mechonach. The goal is to become a Sherman tank. Be reliable, be consistent, make it doable, and find your own practice that you can share with others. Thanks for letting me share tonight.
Wow, Rabbi Shulman, that was very inspiring. Thank you so much. You said that Abaye Varava is good company. I think you'd also be great company. The famous question, are shluchim mechanchim or mechanchim shluchim? This is a very famous question. There's been many fabrengens over it. But if you learn the Rebbe Sichos, you'll see that there's no distinction. The very mandate of Merkez Linyani Chinuch, the driving force of shluchus. In the back of the Siddur, if you take your Kahas Siddur, open it up in the back, there is a mandate of Merkez. Look at it. A majority of it is all about chinuch, education, inspiring. Obviously, shluchus is doing mitzvahim outside. But it's not only that. It's being mashpia in your kehillah. It's about uplifting your kehillah. It's about being mechanech your kehillah. Because every shliach is by definition a mechanech. We would like to welcome the shliach, Rabbi Mendel Gordon, a shliach in Woodland Hills, California.
Thank you. So the subject that we're coming to address is the idea of chinuch on shlichus. And I think that in truth, those two terms really are redundant. As by definition, a shliach is a mechanech. We know that, of course, during the times that you're giving a shiur, that you're teaching a class, that you're having an event, and you share a dvar Torah, a speech or something, of course, those are the ideas of teaching. But of course, chinuch is much more than that. Like the Rebbe taught us many times, that real chinuch, real education, is when you're actually able to change the way a student thinks. You're able to change their perspectives on things. And that's what chinuch is really all about. Like the Rebbe speaks about Gan Yisrael, and the Rebbe had a big shturim about that during the year of chinuch. The idea of Gan Yisrael is an environment that you're living 24 hours a day in Yiddishkeit. In other words, it's not only about the learning class, the times a day that you're officially learning Torah, so to say, but every single moment of your day that's lived in a way of Yiddishkeit is an opportunity for you to be able to teach somebody else, whether it's by actually telling them things, or it's by living by example. There was a father who came by the Rebbe for dollars, and he said to the Rebbe that his two daughters are farther away from Yiddishkeit. What should he do? And the Rebbe told him that you should live by example, without missing a beat. The Rebbe said, when you do that, then automatically you're able to affect them in a much stronger way, much more effective, and it's more peaceful. And this is our job as shluchim as well, where of course when it comes to teaching classes, of course you're going to be able to be mechanech somebody. But in our regular conversation as well, we need to remember that that is also an opportunity and a moment of chinuch itself. As I've seen many times when I meet somebody, you can tell the perspectives, the way that somebody speaks. If there's somebody who's been involved in shiurim or even just in conversations with another shliach before, as you can tell the way that they speak, the way their perspectives are based on hashgacha pratis, etc., and the ideas and the values that Chassidus teaches us. And this is our job. When we go out to meet somebody as a shliach, like I many times go to an office and I'll meet somebody and I tell them an idea, they'll be blown away. And I was just telling them something about my regular day. I wasn't trying to teach, so to say. But the very fact that we have our perspectives that we've gained through Chassidus, when we share that with people, they themselves are coming to learn in a very strong way that will change their lives in a certain sense. I one time had a Shabbos meal. We had a beautiful meal together. And towards the end of the meal, I didn't necessarily say a set dvar Torah or something, but somebody named Mike, a young guy, tells me, wow, he learned more in the last 2 hours than he did in many classes that he's ever been to. Right? So this is the idea. At that moment, I thought to myself, this is exactly the idea, the Nekuda. We had a beautiful Shabbos meal. He enjoyed. He was very happy the entire time. We didn't say anything that was officially learning, so to say. But he gained so much and he learned so much just from us being our regular selves, so to say. And this is our job. When we're going to meet somebody, we are being mechanech. I was one time meeting with somebody. His name was Morris. He was having some struggles with his daughters, keeping a good relationship. And I told him some basic ideas that we've discussed many times. Ideas of showing love instead of just being angry or upset when she does something wrong. And he was blown away. And he's like, what about my yeshus? What about my ego? It really felt like we were learning a sikha together, even though I didn't use a single word of official Torah. Because every moment that we're meeting somebody, that we're speaking to somebody, that we're having even a casual conversation with somebody, we are educating them. And if that's the case, we need to think to ourselves a little bit more in a way of a mechanech. You'd picture that any teacher in a classroom would be a little bit different than a casual conversation with somebody. As a teacher in a classroom is expected to really have a good relationship with the student, to praise the student, to really believe in the student, and that's the way, in a certain sense, that we need to meet and think about the people that we meet. There's many times that I meet somebody and they'll tell me, you can't eat that because it's not kosher. Or on Shabbat, you're not allowed to do that, or you could do that because you keep Shabbat. And I right away always try to interject and say, that's not really accurate, as you are also part of the Yidden. You also don't eat that food. Okay, it could be right now you're having a hard time with that, but you are somebody who doesn't eat that food either. And this is something that the Rebbe taught us, that when we think of somebody, you shouldn't think of them as somebody who's lower, who's not shaykh to it, so to say. When we really believe in a Talmud, you believe in somebody that he can do it, that helps them themselves be able to be picked up. And sometimes they'll respond with a smile, sometimes they'll say, wow, and you know what, you're raising them up to a place that they can really believe in themselves, that they are shaykh to all the mitzvahs of the Torah. And in a classroom setting, of course, I have taught before, and a Talmud I one time gave a challenge, and he says to me, that's impossible. And after he spends a little bit of time and he works on it, he says, wow, I was able to do it. It wasn't that bad. And you were right. And he was blown away, and he was embarrassed to say, so to say, that you were right about it. And the same is true on shlichus. There's many times that you meet somebody and you tell them, this mitzvah is shaykh to you. You could put on tefillin every day. You could keep kashrus. And when you show them how they could do it, they will be blown away and they will appreciate that idea that they are able to follow this mitzvah as well. So as a shliach, we need to remember that our whole day is full of shlichus. Our whole day, therefore, is full of chinuch. Whether it's because we're actively teaching, we're actively sharing an idea of Torah, or just a regular conversation with somebody. Every moment, every part of our day is an opportunity for us to be mechanech, to teach people, to show people and shape people's mind, to be able to think a little bit more, with more emunah, with more bitachim, through us being a dog mechaya, through us living the way that the Rebbe taught us to, and thinking and living and talking in the way that the Rebbe taught us to. Then even a casual conversation is an opportunity for chinuch. It's an opportunity for us to be able to teach somebody, be able to show somebody the beauty of Torah, the beauty of mitzvahs, and the way that they connect themselves with Hashem in a more real way. So l'chaim, we should all work and think a little bit more, like a mechanech, a little bit more in the terms of chinuch, be able to adapt that into our lives, to constantly realize the achrayas and the schus that we have, to be teaching a whole generation of people in a way that they're able to learn Torah and be able to grow in everything that they do in a proper way. L'chaim.
Thank you, Rabbi Gordon. You have given us a new perspective on how we view shlichus in relation to chinuch. So huge shekoyach. The next speaker is a Rav. He's a Skan Rosh Bezdin in Eretz Yisrael. He's the Rav of the Chabad community in Rehovot. And many of you know Rabbi Glochovsky, have heard him fabreng across the globe. He brings a unique Chassidish perspective in relation to Chinuch and Hadracha, and in all things in relation to Yiddishkeit. We would like to welcome to the stage Rabbi Glochovsky and Kana Mokim to say a special tefillah in our minds for Eretz Yisrael. L'chaim.
How the Rebbe views chinuch. There's a letter from the Rebbe in Kut Sichis, Chelik Yud, in the Isofis, page 310. It's a letter from Tovshin Chai, from Ner Rishon de Chanukah. The Rebbe wrote a letter to Anash and in Eretz Yisrael, and he spoke about how every Tomim has the toyer of a Ner Lahor to enlighten the world, and he spoke about the fact that the way to enlighten the world, the way to be Meir the Welt, is be Iker through Chinuch. And he turned to all the younger generation at the time and asked anyone that can should do his utmost to get involved in chinuch and to learn about chinuch, to get involved in chinuch, and those that are already in chinuch to try to perfect themselves even more. In Eretz Yisrael, the first shlichus was shlichus in chinuch, opening up of the Reshet Day schools all over Eretz Yisrael in the late 50s, early 60s. So chinuch has been the name of the game of shlichus in Eretz Yisrael for many, many years. And then there's a sikha from the Rebbe that the Rebbe spoke about in Tov Shalamet Ches, in Chav Daled of Tov Shalamet Ches, that he says we have to try our best, that we need a lot of teachers, we need a lot of counselors, and we should take from the best of the best. The Lashon from the Rebbe was Shufra de Shufra, that they should get involved in chinuch to be then our teachers. There's no question about it that the way the Rebbe saw how important it was for us to be involved in chinuch. I come from a family where my parents Both my parents were involved in chinuch all their lives. My father was over 45 years in chinuch. My mother was for 36 years a preschool teacher, and then she was involved in the school library as a librarian till the last day of her life. My father also till the last day of his life. I remember an interview that my father had that he said that he'll be very pleased if all of his children will go into the field of chinuch. He saw it as the biggest, most important role today in the world that we're living in. That's how important it was to him. And I remember when my father passed away, people came to me, Menachem Ovel, because he taught all ages in all different types of situations. He taught in the day school in Toronto, the Eitz Chaim day school. He taught in the night school. He taught children for bar mitzvah. And I asked the people that would come in, when did you have my father as a teacher? And one of the fellows told me, you're making a mistake when you ask that kind of a question. You should say, when did we start having your father as a teacher? He was always our teacher. Once we became a student of his, he took an interest in us all of our lives. He would meet up with us all the time and carry on the conversation from the last time of the conversation. So when you think back, all of us together, we are who we are today because of the teachers, because of the mashpiyim, because of the malamdim, because of the counselors that we had in camp. They're the ones that shaped us. Of course, it's our parents. We owe them our lives for the chinuch that they gave us. But we're not only fruits of our parents. We were very influenced throughout our years. And you think about the ernst, the genuine educators that we had, the examples that they set, the role models that they made. I don't have to tell all of you what kind of challenges we go through today in this world, with the world of technology, the world of information. And we are the role models, and how much more so in our communities. I remember once Simchas Torah Bar Kofas in my shul, a young fellow, a bocher, he took a little bit of mashke, it was a little high, and he clapped me on my shoulder and he told me, Kvod Rav, Rabbi, I want you to know that I never met your Mendel Futafas. I'm not in that generation. I didn't see him Nissen Emenov. He said, I want you to know that you're my personal Mendel Futafas. And I said to him, what are you talking about? He says to me, you have to realize who you are. You have to realize how we look at you. And that's what's going on in our communities today. All of us to get involved in chinuch. We have to work on getting the best. Our children need that chinuch. They need the role models. We represent their Rebbe today. We represent Chassidus. We represent everything that counts. And when we talk about Mivtza Chinuch in our own communities, how important it is. My daughters, my son-in-laws, they're all involved in chinuch. And I'm proud of it because I recognized the tremendous impact of that shlichus and chinuch in how much it's shaping and forming our generation. One should recognize when we talk about Mivtza Chinuch today and the shlichus and chinuch, how important it is that our good students, to influence them, that they should get involved in chinuch. Here in Eretz Yisrael, we have Shluchi Chinuch today. We have courses from Reshet Ol Yosef Yitzchok, where our Tmimim, when they finish and they're getting married, they can take courses and get the degrees in Chinuch and hear from top Mechanchim to be able to go into our schools, all of our schools that for eigene Kinder and our schools for others. And Baruch Hashem, we're seeing tremendous success. So I want to wish us all that now we're celebrating the 50th year of Mivtza Chinuch, that we should dedicate ourselves once again to the Mivtza Chinuch, what the Rebbe asked from us, in all aspects. And for sure, in our own communities, in our school system, in our yeshiva system, in our seminary system, in our high schools, wherever we can, we should put the greatest effort and use the greatest capabilities that we have to be able to mashpia on the next generation.
Yasher koyach, Reb Mendel Futterfass, sorry, Rabbi Glochovsky, a big Yasher koyach. L'chaim to the Shluchei Chinuch of Eretz Yisrael, and l'chaim to the Shluchei Chinuch across America and Chutz La'aretz. Yasher koyach, Rabbi Glochovsky, thank you. Our next speaker is actually one of the Shluchei Chinuch. I was told that the less I say about him, the happier he will be, and it could be because he's a grandson of Rabbi Chodakov, the masker of Merkez L'Nyani Chinuch, who we know was the Isha Chinuch. And maybe because of our next speaker, and because of his personality, we understand that he's a real mechanech. He's a person who teaches Baruch Yisrael Sava with sincerity, consistency. Every single day he shows up, Masr v'Nasun, to his 6th grade classroom in Florida. And this is a good moment, especially after Rabbi Glochovsky's speech, to celebrate all the mechanechim and mechanechos, all the shluchei chinuch. And just to take a moment out of the Rebbe Sicha and the Koch and the Shnasa Chinuch, we're going to use mechanechim broadly, because tonight we have learned that every single person is a mechanech. But let's take a moment to celebrate the people that are waking up every single morning and are showing up in their classroom. They're teaching them, they're teaching our children, they're believing in them, and they're shaping the future of each and every single child. Please welcome Rabbi Chodakov, the Melamed at Lubavitch Hebrew Academy in Margate, Florida.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Lowenthal, for that beautiful introduction. I'm not sure who told you that I'd be happier with the less you said about me, but it's fine. You mentioned my grandfather, Bashkacha Pratis. Today, in today's Chitas, we learn Hamalamed ben Chaveret Torah Ki'ilu Yolade, that someone who teaches another person's children, teaches him Torah, is Ki'ilu Yolade, as if he himself fathered him, as if he himself gave birth to him. He is his parent. And I remember as a 16-year-old coming back after my first summer as a counselor in camp, and my grandfather telling me that Hamalamed ben Chaveret Torah Ki'ilu Yolade, and therefore it's a lifelong obligation. You have an obligation to your Talmidim always and forever. He's your child, he's yours forever. Now, the truth is that everything that's being discussed tonight, that every single one of our speakers, from whichever angle and whichever perspective, is relevant, of course, to teachers and mechanchim as well. I'm not only a teacher. I'm a parent, I'm a sibling, I'm an uncle, I'm a friend, I'm a community member. And collectively, we have a shared responsibility. The other night, after Ma'ariv, I saw a young man walking over to the boys of Bar Mitzvah Bacha, recently became Bar Mitzvah Daven for the Yom, of course, is an excitement. He approached him quietly, a younger man, and he tells him, Yasher koyach, he compliments him on his beautiful davening, and then pointed out some things that he had to correct. This is something that is outside of teaching hours, outside of a teaching job, but the shared responsibility, the understanding that we have a collective obligation for the chinuch of our children. But if I'm speaking specifically as a Malamed, as a teacher, and I ask myself the question, what more can I do? What can I do, Mivtza Chinuch? There's plenty that I could do. In the classroom itself, even if I'm teaching the same class for many years, if I'm teaching supposedly the same material, besides the fact that every class is different, the dynamic of the classroom is different because of the Talmidim that are there, to make an effort, a conscious effort, to think about what I'm doing, to change things up, to learn new mafarish, to do a different activity, to update my material, to reach out to colleagues, to learn from others, especially with all the new innovative technology and things that are available for us. And beyond the learning, the devotion, the commitment to the Talmidim themselves, as we said, Ki'ilu Yilade. And then beyond the classrooms, not just a question of in the classroom academics and not, but beyond the classroom, to take time to talk to Talmidim, even a short, brief conversation with a Talmud, specifically outside the classroom and unrelated to anything about school or learning, has a tremendous, tremendous impact. I heard that my grandfather once told someone who was in Chinuch, a teacher has to love his Talmidim. And this fellow asked my grandfather, what do you do if you have a Talmud that makes it difficult to love him? What do you do in that instance? And my grandfather told him, in that case, you have to love him even more, because it's very possible that last year's Malamed didn't show him enough love. And I remember a few years ago, very distinctly, I was dealing with a child, and I was thinking to myself, this kid is giving me a run for my money. And I thought about last year's Malamed, and I realized that I was his Malamed last year. And it reminded me that in our own experience, we have to think about, look at every Talmud, whatever happened yesterday. What can I do differently today? What can I do better today? What can I do more for him? How can I make him know, make him realize that I'm there for him, that I care about him, tell him that I care about him in those words. So briefly, if we ask the question, as a Malamed, as someone in Chinuch, what more can I do? Number one, again, as we said before, there are all the responsibilities that we have beyond our job, beyond our classroom, beyond our teaching. Secondly, there's a greater devotion to the Talmidim, both in the mindfulness, in the dedication to what we're doing in the classroom academically, and with the children, with their well-being. And perhaps most importantly, there is the Chinuch Atzmai, that if I know that I work with myself, if I make myself a better person, a better yid, a better chassid, then automatically I will be a better mechanech. And like the Rebbe once told a Melamed, answered a Melamed, a Maina, where the Rebbe said, he sent in a duch, a report of his activities, and the Rebbe said, Asker alatziyain, shetehei hamshachas pe'ulasoi nikeres b'mushbav sheyichyu. That the Rebbe says, I'll mention by the Tzion that the continuation of your own efforts, your own work, should be recognizable and obvious in your mushpaim and those whom you influence. So may we all be zeicha to be in the same situation. Kein tiyelanu, Kabbalah Satayra Besimcha V'Pnimius. Thank you very much.
Achre von der alle Dresdenischen, was mir will Dresden, sich. Und mir will Dresden zweiten und meistes. Als gemein Hornete zugekommen, als sehr viel Kinder, darf man gucken, nicht nur auf die Kinder, die sind zugekommen, sondern man darf gucken auf die Sehr, da ist ich sehr ewig, auf die Gedäume und die Seis, auf die Schäferlach, wo sie blonchen in der Midbar haben. Und man da guckt und überzählt, wie viele da als eine, was gefunden sich im Midbar haben. Und wie viele da als eine, was lernen, kolla, jem, kule, teres Hashem. Noch mehr, da viele mit sehr echt mit Zaref sein, und die, was lernen, kolla, poches, achotze jem. Oder al kolponim, ashoba jem, das nicht willendig, reden wegen in Jonim Amitzarim, das am Matze Mavhil bejese. Nur a viele Nazis abris, was kommen, da ist die Arschus, jecheles nicht suno, lechol lechet v'yachas, soll sich finden, ki zeh nish v'yish, vel ha-Yehudim, ki ksovom und ki l'sheinom, vergesst men, a die Yehudim haben ki ksovom, wie ki l'sheinom.
As we just saw in the Rebbe's video, Chinuch is for every single Jewish child in the world. Not just the ones that are already in a Jewish school, but ones that need to be in a Jewish school. Approximately 20 years ago, when I was in Koilel, this beautiful new organization started, the Menachem Education Foundation, and they elevated the status of teaching. They elevated the status of a mechanech, the mechanechim, and the mechanechos. They have inspired phenomenal talent to go into our schools, to become amazing teachers, and in addition to all of that, he has spearheaded the Kinus HaMechanchos and many other beautiful projects, including tonight. And we have with us the great Rabbi Zalman Schneer, who is here, who has become a great partner in crime in this industry, but I have much to learn from him. So, L'chaim, to Rabbi Zalman Schneer, we would love to hear some beautiful words from you.
Thank you, Rabbi Lowenthal. About 10 years ago, I walked into a shul right near my house in Crown Heights and saw the veteran chassid, Reb Shmuel Fogelman. His face was radiant. He was glowing. I asked him, Reb Shmuel, what's going on? He told me decades earlier, the Frierdiker Rebbe sent his father to be a Rav in Asbury Park, New Jersey. It was a dying community. There wasn't much going on. And he always wondered why his father was sent there. He told me there was a family with 2 boys that were in public school. And he convinced the parents, or the family, to send these children, these 2 boys, to yeshiva. The children resisted. They ran away. He brought them back. They ran away. And eventually they settled in yeshiva. Today, Rabbi Fogelman told me 10 years ago, that day, he was invited to the 50th wedding anniversary of one of these boys. He came into the hall. There were children, grandchildren, even great-grandchildren. There must have been over 100 descendants from those 2 boys. And he said, the Frierdiker Rebbe did not send my father for 2 Jewish children. The Frierdiker Rebbe sent my father 4 generations of Yidden. About a month ago, I repeated this story in a shul. And somebody piped up and he said, yes, I'm one of those grandchildren. This is Mivtza Chinuch. 50 years ago, when the Rebbe launched Mivtza Chinuch, the Rebbe quoted the pasuk in Shir Shirim, Moshcheni acherecha nerutza, haviani hamelech hadara. The Eibishter drew us after him and brought us into his inner chambers. And the Rebbe twisted the word chadarav. And he says, what does it mean to go into the Eibishter's inner chambers? What does it mean to be intimate with HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Is when you bring a child, haviani hamelech cheder, when you bring a child into Hashem's cheder, when you bring him into Jewish education, when you bring a child into a yeshiva, that is giving him the greatest gift of all. You are giving him the ability to be intimate with Hashem. And that is Mivtza Chinuch. It's not always easy. But how does it begin? It begins with one conversation. It begins with having that conversation. I heard from Rabbi Dolphin that the Frierdiker Rebbe instructed 2 Chassidim, Reb Folia Khan and Reb Simcha Gardetsky, during the height of communism, to go into the shuls and to speak to the Yidden there and to tell them not to send their kids to public school and rather to send them to the underground chadarim and yeshivas. It was very difficult for them. It was Mesiras Nefesh Mamish to have these conversations. Sometimes they would even take l'chaim just to calm themselves down. But they did it. And the Frierdiker Rebbe insisted, because this is the future of Yiddishkeit. And this is the greatest gift that you can give a child, is bringing him in, and her, into a Jewish school. Bringing him into the embrace of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it all begins with one conversation. You could be in business, you could be a Bachar Mivtzayim, you could be taking a walk in the park, and you meet a family that has not yet enrolled their children in Jewish education. Take the courage, take the strength, and have that conversation. And you will see that it'll make a difference. It all begins with just a single conversation. 6 years ago, during the height of COVID, all schools were closed. And we realized that Jewish schools, yeshivas, are going to open to in-person learning before public schools. We decided we're going to offer grants to any Chabad Moisid that takes in a child from public school. It was a great idea, but we barely had any funding. One day, I called a very dear friend of mine, Reb Shneir Hirsch, Olav Shalom, and I told him, we have this idea, but there's no money. I will never forget his response. He said, you have to do this. This is the Rebbe's inyan. This cannot wait. This is what the Rebbe kocht in. And then he said, I will fund it. I will get my friends to fund it. I'll get my company to fund it. You just do it and I will support it. And he did. And today, because he took responsibility, Baruch Hashem, more than 823 children are receiving a Jewish education. And we awarded over $2 million to Meises Chabad, all because of one person taking responsibility. And that is Mivtza Chinuch. It begins with one conversation, one person taking responsibility. And 50 years from now, someone may walk into a shul or walk into a hall and see generations of Yidden, all because of that one conversation. Let us seize the moment. Let us take the time and take the initiative. And let's not wait and have that conversation today.
Als mit bet bei jeder Mutter und bei jeder Vater, als sie sollen tun das Größte und Beste, aber wir sollen lernen Tehren mit Levonecho, mit den Kindern und lernen das in Asami Neffen, Beschiftcho, Bebesecho, Lechtcho, Vaderech, und Beschobecho, Kumecho, damit das Lernen und Eischaser nach Feiswenig. Und das ist eingekritzt werden in Herzen und in Kopf. Als sei, wenn die Kinder und die Talmidim und ihre Eltern werden sich gefunden bei Wisecher, sei sie werden sein Belechtcho, Vaderer gehen im Weg, sei Beschorbecho, Kumecho, im Zachlegen schlafen, mit einem Wort von Terror und mit Aufstehen mit einer Anweisung von Terror.
How do we bring the learning of Torah home? How do we make this our own belachtecha, like we just saw in the Rebbe Sicha? For that, we need someone who embodies divrei chachomim benachas nishmoim. Our next speaker has guided countless families in navigating chinuch at home, in the classroom, and in every aspect of life. 40 years ago, the Rebbe told him to go into chinuch. And he spent decades in the classroom, and then as a principal, and then in helping families and schools in facilitating their own education. Rabbi Markowitz is a world-renowned mechanech. He was actually asked by Rabbi Kotlarski many years ago to help shluchim with the chinuch, especially the shluchim in the Ari Asada and the faraway places that need that extra help, support, and guidance that is not there in a typical Yiddish kehillah. He also, Baruch Hashem, he recently joined the Vada Chinuch of the Merkez Chinuch office. Without further ado, Harav Yedid Nefesh, Reb Zalman Leib Markowitz. Thank you.
At the Farbrengen, when the Rebbe announced Mivtza Chinuch, right at the beginning, the Rebbe emphasized that Chinuch of children and Talmidim, which are like children, is not relevant only to certain hours in the day. True Mechanchim care not only about how much knowledge the children will have, but rather also about their conduct. Also, when they eat and sleep and they play. Quoting the Rambam in Hilchas Deis, regarding a chochem, a wise person, says the Rambam, that it's negeya every second in the 24 hours of the day. And the Rebbe goes on to say that all of this begins from Torah. Kihem chayenu v'oirech yomenu. Every child, even a Katan Shebektanim, says the Rebbe, we have the ability to give over an inyan from Torah, Torah Shebeksav, Torah Shebal Peh, and also an inyan of Chassidus, an inyan of Sefer HaTanya, for each child according to their level. The question is, what is our most powerful tool to actually succeed in doing this? Friends and colleagues, the following is being said not in the context of inspiration, rather just sharing facts on the ground. But first, to preface, in the last mimer that the Rebbe distributed, Purim Cotton, Tafshin and Beis 1992, there is a sentence in that mimer, the Rebbe says that just like Moshe Rabbeinu in his generation and Mordechai Tzaddik in his generation, they were the Roya Yisrael in an open, revealed way of the entire Klal Yisrael, says the Rebbe, so is the Friedrich Rebbe in our generation, that he is the Roya Yisrael in a revealed way for all of Klal Yisrael. That statement today has become so real and so clear and so obvious. People from all kinds of backgrounds, in Klal Yisrael are turning to hear what's the Rebbe's opinion, what's the Rebbe's advice on global matters or on private, individual, specific matters. Some reach out to look for practical tips, advice, and guidance in all kinds of situations, which can be found in the thousands of correspondence from the Rebbe to private individuals or to the public. And many are turning just to hear words of encouragement, inspiration, and motivation. We, all of us, the Rebbe's family, the Rebbe's army, we were zeicha to know, to understand, and to be aware that it's much more than just the practical advice, much more than just the inspiration. The godly words, the Shechina Medaberes Mitoich Geroinoi, that the Rebbe shared with us in the thousands of hours of Abrengens, in the Sichas, in the Maimorim, which by learning it, in teaching it, it has its effect. As the Rebbe writes in a letter to a Rav in a community who is reporting to the Rebbe on a Melava Malka, a Siyam Masechta that they did in their shul. And the Rebbe writes to him that certainly you gave over words of the Rabbeim. And if you chazer words of Rabbi Seinu Niseinu, you're guaranteed that it's going to have its effect. This is true for a teacher in a classroom, for a Rav or a Shliach in his community, and also for a father or a mother in their own home. Clearly, self-understood that sometimes we need help from the outside and we are looking for tools in the outside world. However, instead of investing our effort, our energy, most of our energy, in looking to the outside world for the tools where it's clearly not guaranteed, and then to sprinkle it with some of the words of the Rebbe, we should do exactly the opposite. We should invest most of our energy in learning and hearing what the Rebbe says, and sprinkle it sometimes if we need from the outside. And to emphasize and to conclude, this is not a suggestion to sit an hour a day and learn Chassidus and then teach the Chassidus. We should be able to do it. This is just a suggestion. Every single day, mamash every single day, just like we say Moedani, and we daven to find the Nakuda of the Rebbe, whether in audio, in video, in a letter of the Rebbe, a line of a Sicha, or a Yom Yom, to take it in, to connect to it, which doesn't take time, rather focus, and share it with our students in whichever type of position we find ourselves, that we give it over, and that is guaranteed that it's going to help. And just like now in Svira, we finished 49 days, and we're getting ready for the 50th day of Kabbalah Satira. So after 49 years of Mivtza Chinuch, we should be zeicha. We are now at the 50th year. We should be zeicha to be mekabel from the Rebbe, Teiroseh Shal Mashiach, b'mheira mamash now.
Thank you, Rabbi Markowitz. The Gemara says there are three shutfim: father, mother, and the Eibishter. It doesn't say anywhere a teacher. And this is something that Rabbi Sheis Taub has spoken about so many times. Rabbi Sheis Taub, through his classes, his shiurim, his soul words, his podcasts, he has driven home parenting classes specifically for parents. In our generation, we're used to outsourcing our chinuch. We send them to a beautiful moiseh, to a beautiful school, and we're so happy and we're so comfortable. But the Gemara says that's not the way. There are shloisha shut from the Adam. a father, mother, and the Eibishter. So our next speaker, Rabbi Sheis Taub, will help us understand how we need to be being mechanech our children, a shliach in the 5 towns, the director of the Soul Words House near the Rebbe's Oil, Rabbi Taub. Yesher koyach.
Let's talk a little bit about the Rebbe's Mivtza Chinuch and 12 Psukim and the 50-year anniversary. What's interesting in these sichas where the Rebbe introduces the 12 Psukim, Aleph Derish Chedesh Iyar with the first 6 Psukim, and then later on Lag B'Omer, the second 6 Psukim. One of the things the Rebbe describes is this vivid vision, how the Rebbe pictures this is going to look in real life. The Rebbe gives us the Seif Ma'aseh B'Machshava Tchila of what he imagines this will look like. The Rebbe says that children will be infused with the ideas of these 6 psukim. Psukim which were chosen on the basis that they are ideas that children can relate to, and not only relate to enough to understand, but understand well enough that they can give over, and that children will be playing on their own free time. Okay, this is not something that happens in school. It's not a structured event. The Rebbe describes it as something that happens spontaneously. Children are going to be playing, and they're going to be so excited about these ideas, they're going to want to tell it over to other children. And I think that's a very important concept to remember here, that this is not something that is supposed to be so rigid and so structured as much as it is supposed to be something that becomes a sort of second nature. It's supposed to be spontaneous, that a child is infused with these ideas to the point where it just naturally emerges from the child. The child can't help but to share it. And like the Rebbe says in these sichos, it's the nature of children to like to share what they know, and especially to show off what they know and to tell other people what they know. And we're channeling all that, and it becomes like this seamless, natural, spontaneous expression, which is such an important concept here. In addition to everything that happens in a structured environment in the schools, there's the unstructured and informal environment that every mother and father creates at home, where every moment of play, and that's how the Rebbe describes it specifically, it occurs during the child's downtime when they're playing with their friends, that every moment of a child's life becomes educational. Okay, in other words, the Rebbe's vision is children who are so empowered and inspired and excited about these ideas that it's just the most natural thing that in their playtime at home, in unstructured environments outside of the classroom, they are acting as mashpiyim. They are acting as mechanchim. It's interesting that later on, months later, apparently somebody wrote to the Rebbe critiquing where does the Rebbe get this idea of making children into mechanchim. Children are there to be educated, not to be educators. And at the Fabrengen of Yud Beis Tammuz that year, the Rebbe says, it's interesting that this person who asked me this question is apparently unaware of the fact that the entire Torah is only here because children are educators. And the Rebbe cites the famous story of the Gemara, Kama Gadol Ma'aser Reb Chia. Reb Chia, the Tana, saw that the Torah was chas v'sholom in danger of being forgotten. He got 5 kids, 1 to learn each Chumash, and 6 kids, 1 to learn each Seder of Mishnayos. They each mastered their own area, and then they taught each other, and then Reb Chia replicated that, and the entire Torah was restored. The Rebbe says, how? Because children were educators. This is really the vision that the Rebbe gave us. Raising children who are confident, who feel that it's the most natural thing in the world to share what they know, and not just to quote it, to repeat it for a test in a very structured environment, but it just becomes part of the rhythm of day-to-day life, so much so that they're doing this on their own accord, they're unprompted, it's not an adult said, say this and I'll give you a cookie. It's something that just becomes part of the child's personality, and they authentically want to express it, so much so that it happens spontaneously, primarily, where does this happen? It happens specifically in the unstructured environments. This happens in the in-between times where it's not a classroom environment. It's just the child's day-to-day life, living at home, playing with their siblings, playing with neighbors. So what is the job of a parent here? It's, first of all, to give our children the information, the ideas that the Rebbe gave us, that the Rebbe told us are fitting ideas to inspire children. But then it's also not just giving them the knowledge, but then giving them the confidence that these ideas are ideas for them to go and share, and that they're not just supposed to sit and listen and absorb what they're told, that they should go share what they know. And that's when it becomes this revolutionary power that the Rebbe is describing. And that all comes from the environment that is created in the home. So parents, understand something. Your children are not just there for you to be their educators. Your children are there to become not just the future educators, but the present educators. Your children are educators today. And so, a little litmus test of how that's going in your home is when you see your children playing and just interacting in their free time, are they speaking Torah ideas confidently and with passion and with warmth? That lets us know we're on the right track. Thank you again for including me in this event, and God willing, we should see many peiros from taking to heart the Rebbe's guidance in these matters, and the Rebbe should get more and more of what he envisioned 50 years ago. The reality should match more and more what the Rebbe was describing when the Rebbe launched this campaign.
Is Betewe von Kinder, als seine sich Misraeia, sie haben sich mit Kinder Kegile oder viel ein bisschen älter oder ein bisschen jünger. Und auf dem kommen Masbir sein, sei ein kleiner Jüngele, sei ein kleiner Mädele, als sie sollen mal Spier sein. Auf ein Chaverte, in unter die Unionen von Tero, mit Zwissei, in Unionen von Niedigkeit, zu welcher hat Sheina Scheiches.
As we just saw in the Rebbe Sicha, that the children have the power to be mechanechim. Our next speaker has impacted chinuch for children in more ways than one. Tzivos Hashem, he has brought it to new heights. The Chidon, he is a living embodiment of the Rebbe's approach to children, seeing every child that they have a power, they have a purpose, and that they are real chayalim in Hashem's army. As general of the Chayali Tzivos Hashem Brigade, Rabbi Shimi Weinbaum has dedicated his life to mobilizing the children and inspiring our Chayalim that they should realize that they can conquer their own Yetzer Hara and they can bring Mashiach now. Welcome, Rabbi Shimi Weinbaum.
Kuchiku, Kuchiku. Oh, you're adorable. You're so cute. You look just like your mother. Wow, look at that smile. This is how we interact with infants. I mean, they're not ready for education, but we can pamper them, we can look after them, we can take care of them until they are, not the Rebbe. As we heard tonight from the Rebbe, Mipi Eilim V'Yoinkim, these children are actually the most powerful soldiers in the world. And it's brought to life with an incredible yechidus with a journalist, Mati Eden. He asked the Rebbe, how come before every single war in Eretz Yisrael, you came out with a campaign for children, psukim, rallies, whatever it may be, but it's always children. Why? And the Rebbe responded, the people in the Knesset don't have the power to win wars. It's these children that have the power. Not only do they have the power to destroy the enemy, they actually have the power
to stop the enemy's plans while it's still in potential before it comes into actuality. These children had the power 50 years ago to actually bring about the miracle of Entebbe and bring our hostages home. The world today is literally trembling. Terrorism, anti-Semitism. Nobody knows what to do. But the Rebbe gave us the plan 50 years ago. We have the soldiers. We have the ammunition. But back to your question. From what age does chinuch start? And the answer is from the moment they are born. We learn this from Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania, about whom it said, Ashrei Yeladetai, because he became who he became, because he was taken to the shul, to the Beis HaMedrash, in his carriage, and absorbed the Torah as an infant before he had any real Havana v'Hasaga. And the Rebbe turns and points 50 years ago to the new discovery that the doctors have come up with, that the early years of a child are very impressionable. And what happens in those years actually remains with the child for the rest of their lives. They think they discovered this, says the Rebbe. But really, Torah has been telling this to us for all along, which is why when a child is born, right away we put the Shir HaMalos in their room. This is why the Minhag Yisrael Torah is that a mother sings to the child as the Torah is the best Eschera. And by giving the child this message, how special the Torah is, then Gam Ki Yaskin, even when they get older, that's what they desire, that's what they want. And the Rebbe goes on to describe how the Minhag HaMedina is that when a child is born, you put a dog or a cat or a lion or an eagle, all animals which are tummy, by the child. We're going to change that, says the Rebbe. We're going to put Dvarim Shebekdusha, a Tzedakah Pushka, a Bencha, a Kriya Shema, an Aleph base. The Rebbe compares the young child to a seed. A little tiny mark on that seed leaves an incredible mark on them when they grow older. Now I want you to think of a cement being poured. It's soft. It can be molded into any shape you want until it gets hard. Now think about the child's brain. That soft mold lasts till they're 4 or 5 years old. So the youngest age of the child is not only an opportunity, it's actually the most impressionable years. And now, I'm not just speaking to people who are mothers of little children. We all see children and even infants. So the next time you see a child, what are you going to do? Kuchiku, kuchiku. Or is it going to be, Taira, Shema? How are you going to perceive that child? Are you going to perceive them as a little baby or the most powerful soldier in the world? When the Rebbe launched Mivtza Chinuch 50 years ago, he said that through this campaign, we will establish Tzivos Hashem, Hashem's army. And we will prepare the Tzivos Hashem for the coming of Mashiach. 5 years later, when the Rebbe recruited the children into Tzivos Hashem, he asked parents to speak to their children. Tell them who Hashem is. Tell them what it means to be part of Hashem's army. And tell them what a special schus they have, that they are actually going to bring Golus to an end and bring Mashiach for all of Klal Yisrael. So from that moment, that the child gets a little older, now they can talk. We have to up our game. At that point, and when the words come out of their mouth and into this world, I want you to consider this as a guided missile straight at the enemy. So the Rebbe encourages the children, learn the Pesukim by heart. Say them literally whenever you possibly can. But don't limit yourself to saying them. Remember, the Rebbe chose these Pesukim because they can and be brought down B'havana v'hasaga, in a way that a child can actually understand and grasp the message of these Pesukim. And while they're only understanding the Pesukim on a childish level, in kindisha esius, the Rebbe says in those words are actually all the 600,000 Pirushim that are on each part of the Torah, and they understand it on each level of their neshama, including their yechida. But, as we just heard, the Rebbe doesn't want them just to learn it and understand it. He wants them then to become the mechanchim and to share it with the people at home, in their school, and even on the street. Yes, when the Rebbe launched Mivtza Chinuch, he actually said now has come the time to involve the children in Mivtzayim, and specifically Mivtza Chinuch. The Rebbe transformed the children from being children that are being educated, to actually become the mechanchim. On Sunday, I was by the Ayhal. I met two children, a 4-year-old and a 9-year-old. And I turned to them and I said, "Are you mechanchim?" And they looked at me like I fell off the moon. So I turned to the 4-year-old and I asked him, "Do you have a younger sibling?" And he lights up and he says, "Yeah, they're 2 years old." And I said, "Can you say Torah and Shema with your baby?" And again he lights up and he says, "Yeah, I can do that." And then I turned to the 9-year-old and I said, "Could you teach your 4-year-old what Torah and Shema mean?" And again he lights up and he says, "I can do that." The Rebbe told us not only the campaign, but even how to reach the children. It's rocket science. Talk to them. And it works. So we have the battle plan, we have the soldiers, we have the ammunition, and now, forward march. Thank you.
Shekayach. Rabbi Weinbaum, beautiful. I want to tell you a story. About 13, 14 years ago, myself, my wife, and I had the schos of taking over Sea Kids. And when we started, one of the people that I spoke to, Barichas, was Rabbi Weinbaum. And he told us, he said, he took out the Rebbe Kinder, which is a liquid of many of the sichos that the Rebbe spoke to children. And he said, this is the foundation. This is where it starts. So my wife went, we got our own set of the Rebbe Kinder specifically, and she started building the Sea Kids Hebrew School curriculums. And the yesod of every single lesson was not, how do I teach Pesach? Although that's a very important value, is how does the Rebbe teach Pesach? You literally open up the Mifteach, my wife and the staff on the Hebrew school team, open up the Mifteach, and they would teach and learn, and they would be able to write the curriculum, push it through the Rebbe's lens. So about 2 years ago, Rabbi Weinbaum, my wife started telling me, she said, there's all these movements in Anash where people are listening to these parenting podcasts and these parenting classes, Nurtured Heart, V'chehena Rabbois, Lo Yaleinu. They're good things. But my wife said, I don't understand. The Rebbe has a shitta. So this is after 10 years of my wife, Poshet, sitting and learning, not only learning, but developing content based off the Rebbe's Torah. She said, the Rebbe has a shitta here. So move up one more year. Rabbi Shmuel Avson, who's a member of the Vada Chinuch of the America's Chinuch office, and in 770, director of Sichos in English, he comes to me, he says, we found the gold mine. Him and Rabbi Herzl Pevsner have been researching the Rebbe's Shitta in Chinuch through the lens of the 12 Psukim. The Poshet went and they found thousands, hundreds of Sichos, thousands of hours of the Rebbe talking on the 12 Psukim, and they found, and Rabbi Pevsner and Rabbi Avson, Gutta Kep, they Poshet found the Rebbe's Shitta. They said, this is the Rebbe's methodology in 12 Psukim. So as soon as he came to me, spoke to me, I remembered what my wife told me. I said, this is it. You found it? And he right away had a PDF. He said, yeah, look, it's right here. We have it organized. So last year by the Kinus HaMachanchem, Rabbi Pevsner and Rabbi Avson came and they launched 12 Psukim. The Rebbe launched it 50 years ago, obviously. But this is, we say, Boimshin Koimina Shadaita de Rabbi, we're a little not so smart. It took us 49 shnin. 50 shnin to understand Adaita de Rabbi, or to start to understand Adaita de Rabbi. And as one mechan, and the session was by the Kinnis of Mechanchim, and everyone was blown away. As one mechanech told me, he came over to me, he said, I'm coming to the Kinnis of Mechanchim for 15 years. When Yeder Yor, every year, there's beautiful lessons, beautiful sessions on how to educate. And they're good. But they're all taken from other places, and they're kosherized, they're dunked in a mikveh, maybe hot water is poured in them, but they're kosher and they're good, there's no problem. But it's nicht unsere, it's not ours. This is the Rebbe's shit, this is our approach. So Baruch Hashem, we have with us Rabbi Pevsner, who's been the brains behind this whole process. And what happened was, over this, after we finished the Kinnis HaMechanchim in Cheshvan, we made an event with 3,300 ladies, both in person and virtually, Mechan Chois, who went and listened to the same process, started to understand the same ideas. And then there's been classes for Mechanchim and Mechan Chois, given by Rabbi Pevsner, Rabbi Kudan for the Mechanchim, and Mrs. Rappaport and Mrs. Blau for the Mechan Chois. And there are hundreds and hundreds of Mechanchim and Mechan Chois who are now starting to understand better and better what the 12, again, 49 shnin koi min shadaita de Rabbi. It says a boyim shnin. I don't know why it took us 49 shnin. But 49 shnin koi min shadaita de Rabbi, who are now starting to understand the 12 psukim in a much better way, how we can really implement it. I would like to welcome to the table Rabbi Pevsner, who Baruch Hashem just helped facilitate also a beautiful preschool curriculum just in time for Shavuos that is there on the pasuk of Torah Tziva Lanu, that is there to educate from the youngest age. We sometimes think that chinuch starts when the kid, you can have a normal conversation with him like a 9-year-old. No, it starts from when they're in preschool. So I'd like to welcome Rabbi Pevsner to the stage.
Says Chanukah Samizbeach. Chanukah is chinuch. Sometimes we translate it as an education, but actually chinuch is inauguration. Chinuch means that you take a child and you establish them, you install them in their position, you install them in their appointment, you teach them their job, you teach them who they are. To teach information, bilvad, to just teach information. The Rebbe once said in a very, very powerful sikha, very powerful Fabreyan Yud Shvat, Tovshin Tesvov, it's like building a building without a foundation. You build a tower without a foundation. You add another floor and another floor, even though they're the best building materials. You're teaching more Torah, you're teaching even more Torah. But chas v'shalom, if it's without the foundation, that you're establishing that this is who the child is, that you're giving the child the foundation of Yiddishkeit, chas v'shalom, the Rebbe says, another floor will unfortunately make the building topple. It's shocking words. It was, when I heard these words first, I had to re-listen. What? Really? But what is that remedy? What is that foundation? How do we give a child the foundation? We're teaching information, their young brains, their young minds. Of course, we're forming them, we're giving them, we're doing our very best, and we're trying with all our heart and soul. But how do we establish the foundation of what it means to be a Yid? How do we give the child the foundation of Yiddishkeit? So Baruch Hashem, as Rabbi Lowenthal mentioned, I'm very, very personally very grateful to Sichas in English, who gave me this opportunity several years ago to start studying the Rebbe's language of Chinuch, to see how the Rebbe was mechanech, learning from the Rebbe's model, learning from the Rebbe's mouth. How did the Rebbe teach kids? And what is the Rebbe's answer? How do you give over the ideals of Yiddishkeit? How do you compact something so important to build a foundation that then all the education is not a migdal peireach ba'avir, as the Rebbe said, a tower floating in the air, but it's grounded and it's solid. And the more you build, only better and stronger this building becomes. What is that Yesod? What is the foundation? So the truth is that the Rebbe provided the exact framework for the Yesod. You see, in previous generations, maybe it was more by osmosis that Rebbe explained. It wasn't direct. You didn't need to hand it to them. Here's the formula. However, in our times, it's important and it's essential that we go ahead and present. Here is what Yiddishkeit is. Here is what you are. The Rebbe didn't start Tzivos Hashem until 5 years after the Rebbe started Mivtza Chinuch. In other words, you need to educate children about who they are, and then you could draft them into an army. So what is this foundation? So this foundation the Rebbe gave is the 12 Psukim. How do I know that? I know that because the Rebbe didn't make it a one-time campaign. Every time the Rebbe spoke to the children, it was after they said the 12 Psukim. And then the Rebbe and the Sichos that followed would explain what they said. The Rebbe established that the children are their own mechanchim. The children are able to have the basis of what it means to be a Yid, as encapsulated in the 12 Psukim, that establish the fundamentals of Torah, the relationship with the Eibishter, their power to overcome the Yetzer Hara, the cherishedness of the Eibishter, the ease to fulfill Torah and mitzvahs, the empowerment of V'hinei Hashem Nitzav Alav, and so on and so forth. And these messages that Rebbe baked in, that this is what you were saying. This is what you were saying. This is what you were saying. Chinuch is inauguration. We're not teaching children about what it means to be an adult. We're not teaching the children what Yiddishkeit is as a theoretical. We're installing them in their positions. We're giving them the power. We're giving them the ability to be who they are. And in such a way, the Chinuch is just completely different. I want to give a very personal Yasher Koyach to everybody who's been involved in this project. I know there's so many of you listening, participating in this event tonight, right, have been impacted and are part of this reverberating campaign. As Rabbi Lowenthal mentioned, we have the course for Mechanchim and Mechanchois. We have the curriculum that was just put out. I also want to give a Yasher Koyach to Chabad.org. They're also going to be featuring a course for parents in the next in the upcoming weeks. And also there's the very creative Kabbalah Tunes videos that are encapsulating the messages in just such simple and easy ways for everybody to appreciate, understand. Sometimes what it takes in an hour, Rabbi Tzvi Freeman Kanai Hara can capture in just 2 minutes, right, of a beautiful and cute animation. But there's so much there and available. And what you'll notice while you're exploring these teachings, you'll notice while you're exploring the Rebbe's presentation of the 12 Psukim, is that so many of these messages you're already teaching. You already know them. You're already giving them over somewhat. So just re-emphasize it. Give it the impact. Give it the emphasis that it deserves, and B'ezras Hashem, we will establish a generation of Tivus Hashem marching out of Golus, the front lines to greet the Gula Amitas Vashlema Malkeinu B'Reishenu. Thank you so much.
Zu gehen der Nomen allein und der Mond, als ist befreit menen von El der Cheres und noch mehr von El Malchus Bosser Vodam und man gibt das Sopli Schusse, also soll erreichstellen die Kinder, wie klein sie sollen nicht sein oder wie groß sie sollen nicht sein beschonnen in a Chinuch shel Teru Mitzvah, was sie durchgenommen mit Yiras Hashem und mit Tavas Hashem, durch Verschreiben, mal reinbringen, mal reinziehen, sehen, tun, als was wir kennen, also sollen gehen, gleich in a Yeshiva oder Talmud Torah, oder a Besefer, wie der Name soll nicht sein, jede Medina, Lefi in Yono, in die Schoes, was haben sich befreit, Nesef, auf die Schoes, was hat Belawwoche gelernt, Limude Kedesh, und auch dort, was sie kommt, tegen die Bote Sefer werden geschlossen. Oder man darf haben Chizek Abrius von dem Kind, la Mitose,
soll man ihm gleich reinnehmen, verschreiben und reingeben und reinnehmen in a Machne Jemi, in a Machne, was dort sein, Kol Hayem Kule, bemeshach von Wochen noch anand, in a Ruach, in a rumgenommen mit a Ruach von Avas Hashem, und Yiras Hashem und Shiurim Beteras Hashem, mide jem bejeme, und beisofo bejem HaShabbos, was keide Shula Hashem, was hat demult in der Sumer a Gesunter, beemes worden, dass mal gesinnte de Kinder, sei begashmi, sei beruchnis.
As we just saw in the Rebbe Sicha, a major part of Mivtza Chinuch is getting children into camp. Baruch Hashem, we know our own children, they go to camp, and they have the dugma chayas of the bachrim and the girls that are their staff members, and they can impart information and knowledge by being pasha, being a dugma chaya. They may not have the skills and the classes and the training how to be the most par excellence educator, but just by them being a chassidisha bachra, a chassidisha girl in camp, is a dugma chaya for our children. But in addition to our own children, the Rebbe speaks over here, if you watch the Rebbe Sicha just now, the Rebbe talks about getting children into camp who would not be going into camp. What's the mile of camp? Because it's 24 hours a day and there's no limud chayil. Baruch Hashem, this past year, some senior shluchim across the globe got together and they realized that we need to get more children who are not yet in Yiddish camps into Yiddish camps. And they put together $250,000, and then we approached Rabbi Kasil Yehuda Rohr, Mr. George Rohr, and his family to match that. And Baruch Hashem, there was $500,000 put that children should go to an overnight camp. And we launched the Sea Kids grant campaign for the 6 Sea Kids Gan Yisraels. And today, those camps are fuller than ever. So Baruch Hashem, this is all l'chvoid Shnasa Chinuch, and l'chvoid the fact that we need to be able to get more and more children into overnight camps. Now, to talk about this, ba'arichus, more, and to close the program tonight, we have the one and only camp man. Who's the camp man in Lubavitch, if you think? Rabbi Zalmi Kudan. Rabbi Zalmi Kudan is a shliach in Simcha Barbara, California. In addition to being a shliach in California, he trains. He goes to Gan Yisrael Montreal. He goes to all of the Lubavitcher camps to train the staff. He trains many of the staff that are going to the Gan Yisrael for the Chabad houses. He trains over 2,000 staff per summer in his program called the chinuchtools.com. And Baruch Hashem, Rabbi Kudan, he wears many, many hats. He's on the board of Tzivos Hashem. He's on the board of Chidon. He's the vice president of education for Gan Yisrael International. And we want him to wear all of his hats tonight to hear and close the program. Rabbi Kudan.
So here's a camp story that's about to happen in 6 weeks. It's going to be the first night in camp. Benny is lying on the top bunk. He hears the creaking of the metal springs. He smells the cedar wood that was cleaned with a little too much bleach. He is a little uncomfortable. He's thinking about home. He doesn't exactly remember both of his counselors' names. And suddenly the camper underneath him says, "Are you still up?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "What are you doing?" "I'm thinking." He says, "What are you thinking about?" So Benny says, "I'm thinking about Vihine." He says, his friend, he doesn't remember his name. He says, "Well, what's Vihine?" He says, "The pasuk Vihine." He says, "Why are you thinking about that?" He says, "Because I know that Hashem is standing here in the bunkhouse with me. And I know that even though I'm a little nervous about how the summer is going to work out, Hashem is standing here and he's supporting me." And then I looked over at the mezuzah and I saw the mezuzah and I remembered Shema Yisrael, that Hashem has a personal relationship with me, Hashem Elokeinu, and even though he's Hashem Echad, the Hashem of the boss of the entire world, he cares about me and our relationship. I know he's going to stand next to me and he's going to make sure that Imavdei Karoi, that I can reach my full potential here. I can do amazing in this camp. And his confused friend says, "How do you know all that?" And the answer to that question is us tonight. Every single person listening to this video, live, recorded, Emet Hashem, we are going to take the next few weeks, the next 6 weeks before camp, to find every single Yid, child, adult, and to share the messages of the 12 psukim. We're going to have to learn them ourselves better. We're going to have to share them so that every child, the Rebbe says it should be playground talk. Children in the playground should be talking about the 12 psukim. And that's now. Right now is when the 300 plus sichas, 120 plus rallies, 1,200 plus pages of chassidus that the Rebbe spoke to children is going to come alive. The Rebbe chose this time of year to launch Mivtza Chinuch. School started a long time ago, right? We're in the middle of school already. We're at the end of school. We're already planning our graduations now. But the summertime is coming. And the summer is the time when the Rebbe says is the time that we can use our free time. It's not just the kids in camp. It's not just the kids at home that have less school hours, because it's also everybody. We all have a different schedule. We all have a relaxed schedule. And we have a little bit more of an open mind. And now we have to take that space and use it for chinuch. We have to find the meaning of the 12 psukim, and we have to share it. If we're older, Bobby and Zaidi, we should share it in our bungalow colony, in our block, in our shul, in our businesses, in our communities. And yes, I get to work with the counselors. And this summer is going to be a summer that's going to change the way that we look at ourselves and the way that we look at the Jewish people and the way we look at Hashem and His Torah. When I was a camper, it was right just by the times of Gimel Tammuz. We're still singing those songs decades later. My learning teacher, Rabbi Silverberg, he wrote the song with it to Helen. But we need you. We're still singing it. It changed the way we looked at Rebbe and Chassid. We're still, at least people my age, we still remember the videos of the Faithful Shepherd. That was my Kolber play. I drew the backdrops for that play, right? And this year, somebody in this Fabrengen is going to be the counselor that's going to write the song on Torah Tziva, that's going to change every single child and every single adult's way of looking at the gift that Hashem gave us of the Torah. And someone is going to make that play that is going to change the way that every child looks at himself, because he makes Hashem happy. Yismach Yisrael B'Esav. That when I overcome a challenge, that play is gonna it's happening now. It's happening right now. I know that it's not only the camp professionals. I'm a big fan of Rabbi Chol Machnik, and his books were written. The labels Lighthouse and the the double-decker purple shul bus. They were written for Shas Chinuch, and everybody here, we all have something to share. We all have something to share, and we have to do it. We have to share it, and we have to take this summer and make it so that every Benny on every bunk bed, and every Chaim Mushka in the bungalow colony or her home during the summer, when she comes home from day camp, is thinking about the Rebbe's Geula language. The way the Rebbe speaks is Geuladik. We heard from so many people today that everything I do should be part of the Eibush, everything I do should be part of Hashem, everything I do is part of Torah, wherever I am, wherever I'm going to be. So let's please now direct your attention to a special website, onemitzvah.org/chinuch50. It's time for Poel Mamish Chavre. Rabbi Moshe Kolarski Olav Shalom, today's his day. He launched onemitzvah.org. /chinuch50 is today's page. Right now, we're going to try to get the first 1,000 chinuch hachotes. I was looking at this page now. It's starting slowly here, but we're going to all do it now. Bobby and Zaidis. I'm going to gift my grandchild with a Torah gift. I'm going to learn with the 12 psukim with somebody. Businessmen. If every business had the pasuk of the week for the next 6 weeks, can you imagine? We're all kaching in it. Teachers to bring it into the classrooms, bachrim and girls to start preparing for camp in a way that's meaningful. Children, of course, the whole idea of Mivtza Chinuch was that the children themselves are mechanchim now, mechanchos. And my personal achlata, I'm very excited about taking this incredible wealth of camp professionals and creating those curriculums and the activities and the daily conversations, the night activities and the day activities and the songs and the plays to reflect the Rebbe's Chinuch language found in the Sichos to children. Let's take the 12 psukim and bring them to life in a way we've never done before. And then we're going to have them live right away, available on 12psukim.org. Imagine sitting in your bungalow colony, or sitting at home, or driving the bus, or taking the taxi, the Uber, and listening to the latest song that just came out of camp today that says that B'chol Dor V'Dor means that today I have no challenge that is locking me. I'm free to do what I want. Chavra, together, we can take on these achotas. We can realize the Rebbe's vision that this world is a world of Hashem's. Tzivus Hashem won the war, and Mashiach is here. L'chaim.
Yashakayach Rabbi Kudan, and thank you for all that you do for the Klal HaShlochim, for the Klal HaNash, that you help them in their camps and running and managing them. L'chaim Rabbi Kudan. We heard tonight from Rabbanim, from Shlochim, from Machanchim, from Balabatim, from all kinds of people about how they are living chinuch in their own life. Now, take it in your own life. Take it into your own life. Whoever you are, a child, an adult, male, female, whoever you are, Machanech, Shliach, Balabos, go to onemitzvah.org/chinuch50, take on a personal hachlata in chinuch, whatever it is, and let's do this and let's bring Mashiach. We want to continue. Tonight's event is beautiful. We want to continue it the ganze Nacht. In order to do that, there is 2 Farbrengens, one for men, one for women. So if you want to go to the women's Farbrengen, Mrs. Vivi Darren is Farbrengen at mef.org/chinuch50 woman. You can now join that Farbrengen. Again, mymef.org/chinuch50 woman. You could join the women's Farbrengen. And for the men, there is actually now a Kinus Azori, a regional Kinus in Baltimore, in Maryland, in Hartford, Maryland. And they had now a banquet, and now they're going into the Farbrengen, which is open up, which is opened up for everyone in honor of Shnas HaChinuch. It is kinus.com/yahrzeit. Yahrzeit is spelled YAHRTZIEIT. So kinus.com/yahrzeit. Enjoy the Farbrengens. Thank you to all the presenters tonight. Thank you to all the organizers tonight. A big yashakayach, may be zoiche to learn from Torah Chadasha Miyiti Teitzei, that we should learn in a ofen of Riyah from Mashiach Tzidkenu, where it's the ultimate form of chinuch. Mashiach Tzidkenu, v'huya lechenu kamiyas l'artzenu v'mehira v'meinu mamash now. Thank you.
Yifrach b'yom of tzadik v'rav shalom ad liyoreyach. Yifrach b'yom of tzadik v'rav shalom ad liyoreyach. Ay 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 I